Good evening, everybody. Welcome to my Knowledge is Love Astrology podcast. This is Eric Taylor, Big E Astrology. And no, I'm not starting off with a freestyle rhyme, which is kind of normal. This is a different day and a special show. 4 years ago today, I awakened from 40 days in coma. I went on the other side. I pretty much, was gone. And I made it back. And tonight I have an extremely special guest. This is her third time on my show, an astrologer who is so gifted and definitely someone who's extremely intuitive. And her name is Laura Bruno, and she's working on a very powerful book. And we are going to explore tonight her book, her research, and the stages kind of my journey through the underworld. So sit back, relax, bring your open mind, your ears, your heart. And I just want to say thank you. It literally took me about 2.5 years to respond back to all the comments on YouTube. I hit the like button, but I actually replied back to every person that prayed for me, sent me healing energy, everything. And I'm in constant gratitude, and so much gratitude to my amazing wife who's here to be reading the chat for us tonight, because without her, I may not have returned back. She literally fought, on her side, the real side, while I was on the other side to help keep me alive. So it's episode 389 of my Knowledge is Love Astrology podcast. And it's time to start the show. Laura Bruno, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you for having me, and congratulations on 4 years of being back.
Well, I guess I have to kind of say my new birthday is the Libra Gemini cusp, October 16th, right? I'm kind of really born again. So it's kind of wild. So I want to start off. I mean, this is your third time on the show, so people can watch other episodes and probably know a little bit about you already. But I guess my first question is, what is the title of your book and why? Like, what made Laura Bruno want to write a book about NDEs connected to astrology?
Well, it's a work in progress, so the title is also in progress, but it's probably pretty set. So it's either The Astrology of NDEs or Astrology of NDEs, with the subtitle of What the Sky Tells Us About Near-Death Experiences and Those Who Have Them. So I'm looking at natal charts of people who've had near-death experiences, the transits to their natal chart at the time of their experiences, but also progressions, what was going on just in the sky. And so really kind of looking at a lot of things and just looking for the patterns. So, I mean, as far as what made me want to write this book, I didn't want to write this book.
I was like, it's a doozy.
Yeah, it's a really hard book to write because I'm not only telling these very complex stories. I mean, some people, you were in a coma for the longest of anyone that I've spoken
Oh,
with.
really? I was.
Yeah, but I, Eben Alexander was in his coma for a week, and other people had a car accident, but then, so there's the accident transit, but then what was happening when they were in surgery. And so it's complicated just with the stories, but then there's like this other layer of what was the story in the sky at that time. So this was not on my radar to do. In retrospect, I've been working on this book for about 30 years, but I didn't know that I was working on the book. And what happened was, it was fall equinox of 2023. So we just passed kind of the 2-year marker. And a few days before that, all of a sudden I was like, oh, I'm doing a cleanse. And so it was like a 3-day cleanse. And you know how if you're fasting, like, you get to a point where all of a sudden you're having all this clarity and you're just like really tapped in and kind of not quite in this world anymore. And so that's the state I was in. And then just all of a sudden on fall equinox, I was like, oh, I'm writing a book about the astrology of near-death experiences. And originally I thought it was also going to be about UFO contact, but that it's too big of a topic. So I just narrowed it to NDEs. There is some crossover, but I I've looked at a lot more NDEs than UFO contact events. And so if I ever do that, that'll have to just be a separate book. But yeah, I started working on that, and then was just sort of start with the research. And then I found out that Lynn Coiner, who you, I guess, know or know of anyway.
Yeah.
Um,
Through my astrology teacher, Heather Elin. Yeah,
right.
exactly. Because she studied with her too.
Right. So Heather Elin interviewed Trisha Barker, who I've also interviewed for the book.
Okay.
And but this was before I had interviewed her. And she mentioned an NDE natal marker. And I was like, ooh, what's that? And so I contacted Heather, and she, put me in contact with Lynn Coiner, her website. And I have had some correspondence with Lynn. And basically there is an NDE natal marker, and I use Placidus houses. That's what Lynn Coiner uses. That's the only house system that I can say that this for sure works in. It doesn't mean that it's the best. It's the one that I use, and it's the one that shows up accurately in terms of people's life history, whether or not they had an NDE, and then it shows the marker. So I'm like, okay, for this
That's
is the correct. Yeah. And so, yeah, I kind of tweaked her idea of the natal marker. So basically it's either a planet or a point in the 8th house, quincunx, so 150 degrees. That's also inconjunct is another way of saying that, but it's quincunx something else in the chart. And so it could be, some people have multiple NDE markers. So there might be 3 planets in the 8th house, and they're all quincunx something else, or the ruler of the 8th house quincunx something else. And so those ones are less obvious. Like if something's in the 8th house and it's quincunx something else, you can just tell. You look at the chart and you're like, oh, boom, NDE natal marker.
So wait, so that's powerful. So you start off looking at the natal birth chart first before transits and or secondary progressions?
Well, you need the natal chart in order to do
Well, to
the
look at the
transits,
transits
and
that they're going through, yeah.
so yeah, I start off with the natal chart, and I just scan. And most people that have had NDEs, it's very obvious. It's in the chart, either the ruler or a planet or a point. It could be the vertex. It could be your part of fortune. But something in the 8th house or the ruler of the 8th house, quincunx something else. So that shows up pretty consistently, but sometimes there's somebody that's had a near-death experience, they've had a near-death experience, and you look at just, the standard chart, and it doesn't always show up. And you're an example of that, right?
Of course, me. But before we get to that, because it's just comedy, of course, me. But explain for those who could be new to astrology or new to my channel, what is it about the 8th house that really explains that is one of the major markers for a near-death experience?
Right. So the 8th house is the house most associated with death, with transformation. It's a house of shared resources, sex, intimacy. So, I mean, there's a lot in the 8th house, but as far as near-death experiences are concerned, it's the house of death and rebirth. And so it makes perfect sense that an NDE natal marker would have something to do with that house.
Yeah. And you have those sudden events and emergencies that happen there, right? So it's like very, oh man, it's full of all the yummy things to dance on the other side.
Yeah. So, and then as far as like, why is the quincunx? Because it's not just in the NDE natal marker. I find that the quincunx aspect, and also yod, so like 2 quincunxes that point to another point, kind of an isosceles triangle, also known as a finger of God, right? Those show up over and over again at the time of NDEs, either as transits to the natal chart or in the sky. And it's really interesting to me. So there's a website called Near Death Experience Research Foundation, NDERF. And they've got a whole bunch of like 5,300 accounts of people that have had near-death experiences. They do not include birth date as as something on their intake form. I'm trying to get them to do that because it would make my work a lot easier. But some people include it anyway. And so I've been going through that chart, and I can't do a full, I can't look at the house system because they're not including their time of birth.
Right.
But it does allow me to look at the date. And so I've been able to look at that. And then astro.com, they have an NDE database. It's got 26, or last check, it had 26 people in there that have had near-death experiences and that have verified natal birth chart information. And so that allows me to really rapidly go through and look at things. And so I've been looking for patterns both in the sky and in natal charts. And also it does seem like sometimes there's a good day to die. It's like there's certain transits that show up over and over again. And I'm like, this is wild to me, but it's there. The patterns are there.
Wow, that's really awesome and so incredible. And now we have to share, and I don't remember it off the top of my head right now, but you are the Gemini sun. And what is your moon and ascendant again?
So the thing that's relevant for me doing this research is I've got an exact grand trine in my natal chart. So I've got a sun in early, I don't mind giving my number. So
Okay.
sun at 1 Gemini, moon at 1 Aquarius, Pluto at 1 Libra. So it's exact, like minutes apart only. And so, I mean, my whole life is like an NDE. Like, I mean, it's pretty absurd, but,
Oh my God.
and so fall equinox, when I got the idea for this project, right, the sun's at 0 Libra. So it was like right there on my Pluto when the idea dropped in. And
Oh, that makes so much sense.
yeah.
Wow.
Well, and also a good portion of the time that I've been writing the book, Pluto has been parked on my moon, right? It's been crisscrossing my moon. So that grand trine with Pluto has been getting really activated.
And
this
then the
whole time.
Gemini, the writer,
Mhm.
Mercury, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I have 4
Wow.
planets in Gemini and Virgo rising. So there's a lot
That's
of
right, the
verbal.
Virgo rising, yeah. So we're gonna get to the chat, and hello to everybody, and Alana will be reading the chat. But I just want to start off because you said something really interesting. You saw these common themes, but not with Eric Taylor. So I think before we get to the major October 16th, um, and before we get to the chat, because this may spark some different questions for people, what was happening basically? And they know I'm a Scorpio rising, a Virgo sun in the 11th house, and a Capricorn moon in the 3rd. But what was happening in the sky when I went into the hospital on August 29th? Like what brought on or really took me to this point where my oxygen got down to 56%. They come to the house and they're like, Mr. Taylor, how are you even talking and standing? And then as I am going and I'm getting put in an ambulance, my wife is really sick. She's upset. The kids are crying. And it's like the movie scene on the front lawn. I literally tell them, please don't cry. Daddy's going to be okay. I'll see you in October.
Oh, wow.
So what was happening on August 29th
So on August 29th, there was a new moon in Virgo. And so one of the things that is, there's a lot of patterns that I've noticed. And one of them is that you've got a lot of planets in Virgo. And I often see this with people, not just in Virgo, but a stellium in the natal chart.
Okay.
That shows up over and over again. And my theory on that is because if you've got a whole bunch of things in one sign, then and you get like an intense aspect.
It's like hitting everything.
Yeah, the odds are higher. And so on August 29th, the moon was moving through Virgo. There was a new moon in Virgo, pretty close to your natal sun. And so that kind of triggered it. But the other thing, I mean, that happens every month, right?
Yeah.
So obviously that wasn't the only trigger. But what happened was the nodal axis, so the transiting north node and south node, almost exactly squared your Mars. And so there was a T-square with your natal Mars in early Virgo. The north node was, I think, it was like 1 degree off of an exact T-square for you.
Right. And that North Node was transiting Gemini, my 8th house.
Right. So that was kind of setting the stage. And then the other unusual thing about August 29th of 2021 is that Mars was also moving through Virgo then. And so, a lot of times I'll see there's a longer transit going on, and then along comes the moon and it pops it off. Or along comes Mars and it like hits a key spot of a longer transit and boom, all of a sudden all the sparks start flying. And so you had both simultaneously. You had this new moon in Virgo very close to your natal sun, but it also hit other points in your chart that including what I found to be one of your NDE natal markers. So that kind of triggered things. And then when you dropped into your coma, the moon was
6th,
was like within minutes of your natal sun. So the new moon occurred earlier that day, but then as you slipped into your coma, so that was on the was that on the 6th?
Yeah, I was going to say
that
the
was
moon
September
must not have
6th.
been there August 29th because it wouldn't be there till the 6th. So.
Right. It wasn't until the 6th.
Okay.
What was happening on August 29th actually was Mars was crossing your NDE natal marker. So Mars was crossing your Mercury, which is the ruler of your 8th house, your Gemini 8th house ruled by Mercury. Mars was crossing that on August 29th. And then go ahead.
And I just want to clarify for people, Mercury, but also Gemini, and then dealing with the 8th house, emergency sun events, that's the lungs, right? Mm-hmm. So they rule the lungs. Mm-hmm. And that's what was going on because I went down to 10% function of one lung. And they did not offer to induce coma. They literally watched me, get sicker and sicker each day. So let's go to the chat. Let Alana step in and see who's here. And if you guys have any questions as we kind of go through this story and this journey, because her research is brilliant. So
we have quite a few people here. Hello, everyone. I wanted to comment. Kim Kalia said,
closer.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Can you guys? I'm trying to stay out of this.
No, that's okay.
Oh no, come in.
Kim Kalia said that she has a big stellium of planets in Virgo, and I heard you mention about how that can be an indicator for near-death experiences.
No. Well, it has to be activated, but because it's a big stellium, when something activates it, it's going to hit all those different planets.
Okay. Well, she's got a big one that's going to be hit.
Well, and it doesn't, just to be clear, it doesn't necessarily mean that if you have a stellium in your natal chart, you're going to have an NDE.
Yeah.
The NDE natal marker really does play out in I would say like 99% of the cases. People that have it, if I ask somebody, like I have people's charts that I did years ago when I wasn't researching this. And if they have a session with me and I pull up their chart again and I see that they have the natal marker, if I ask and say, hey, I just got to ask, did you ever have an NDE? It's almost always yes. Or if they don't say yes, it's like a very, very strong maybe. Like, oh, I almost died when I was, being born. Or when I was 2 months old, my mom found me blue. Or things like that, where they don't remember the NDE necessarily, but like something happened. Or sometimes I see people where they have the marker, they haven't had an NDE yet, but they do shamanic work. So they're like constantly doing shamanic journeying or using psychedelics or doing some kind of profound meditation where they're entering this really deep state that is kind of creating similar types of experiences.
Oh, wow. That's fascinating. Okay. Let's go back to the chat.
If you guys could just ask any questions you may have or share any placements the way that Kim did, because a lot of people saying hello and asking, but I think we have Laura here who's such an expert. So if there's anything that is pressing or that you're curious about, let's use her. Let's see. Phoenix is saying hello to you as well. Laura. And
Hi.
Quintella said how interesting it is. And what is Laura's big three? Phoenix is asking you that.
Okay, so she just mentioned it. She's the Virgo rising,
Mhm.
the Gemini sun, and she's got a big Gemini stellium herself, and she's the Aquarius moon. And that was as she said, on the equinox, and her Pluto, she's got a grand air trine with Pluto, sun, and moon. And that's when she got inspired to start writing the book. And then through this whole journey, as the last recent years, Aquarius, Pluto's been dancing on her moon. So that's what Laura rocks with and what she's been experiencing through this journey. So so then explain some of the markers that you saw and really what was happening on September 6th, that at 11 o'clock at night
Yeah.
and my wife got the
So
crazy phone call.
So on the 29th, when you went into the hospital, Mars was crossing your natal Mercury, which again, that's part of your NDE natal marker.
Okay.
Quincunx, we'll get into that later, maybe of what it is. It's a little obscure. I had to look it up in a larger ephemeris because it didn't make sense. You were the only person that I had interviewed who didn't have an obvious marker in their chart. So, but when I looked, you did, and it made a lot of sense. So Mars was crossing over that point when you entered the hospital. Then when you dropped into the coma, there was the new moon in Virgo, and then the moon kept going, and boom, right on top of your natal sun. But at the same time, Mars was within 2 degrees of your natal Pluto, and Mars always acts early, right? So Mars was activating that right then. And your Pluto has another. So I call this an alternate NDE natal marker because I think there's 5 or 6 people so far that I interviewed for my book that have this exact marker, which is Pluto in, it's usually in late Virgo or very early Libra for this, but Pluto in late Virgo, quincunx pholus, Pholus, in either very late Aquarius or very early Pisces. And the reason I call that an alternate NDE natal marker is Pholus is the small thing, big effect centaur. So kind of like the butterfly effect where something gets triggered and you may not realize the full-blown consequences of that trigger until months or years down the road. But in retrospect, it's like, oh my gosh. And so, yeah, what I find is that Pluto Pholus quincunx, it sensitizes the Pluto, right? It makes it that you have this small thing, big effect energy connected with anything that gets near your Pluto. And so Mars was, coming up on your Pluto, but which is always a big deal, right? Like that's always an intense transit. But for you, it's like extra intense because of that Pholus energy. So it was like popcorn.
That's something. So, okay. And so now you're saying that Pholus is a centaur?
Yeah.
Okay. And so it can turn the small thing into the big thing. And that's an Aquarius. So that Virgo Aquarius relationship, and obviously Pluto took me to the underworld, and Mars was like, one-way ticket, mister. And Mars, you guys, is also like blood procedures, like cuts, things like that. And, there was no bleeding or anything like that for me, but like Mars is like the soldier, the warrior. And it's like, it sparked the transformation, right, of the Pluto and the Pholus.
Well, and also your NDE is different than a lot of people's NDEs. I mean, first of all, you were under for 40 days, so that's like a symbolic length of time, right?
Yeah.
But also, I mean, you were like in a massive underworld initiation. I mean, it wasn't like, oh, I'm riding a butterfly and I'm up in heaven. I mean, you were having to really fight for stuff and deal with generational healing. And even when you got checked into the hospital, the nurses and everybody were like really confrontational.
Well,
So
wait, now
Mars
didn't you
was
say
very
you
much.
saw a marker that could represent that?
Well, I think it was just the Mars. I mean, you had the nodal axis T squaring your natal Mars, and then you had transiting Mars crossing your Mercury and your Sun and Lilith and all. So it was like hyper reactive, and
Right.
then Mars Pluto.
Right. No,
right?
and
Is
so for the
like,
people that may not know, when I first went into the emergency room, I had a female ER doctor who basically verbally assaulted me and was, like kind of, very accusatory, like Mars Mercury. It was literally Mars Mercury,
mhm.
on your sun. And, and at some point, I literally turned to her and I said to her, like, are you going to help me? Like, you know what I mean? Because like, I don't really need this lecture, you know what I mean? And she was, I guess extremely angry because I, chose not to, get vaccinated. So it was an intense time and stuff, but this was not the heart of the pandemic. So I want people to know the hospital, and Alana will tell you, the hospital was pretty quiet, pretty empty
Mhm.
for the most part, because this was August, September of 2021. So this wasn't like the first rush or like a little bit of but it was the Delta, because I did get COVID before then,
Mhm.
and, sick for about 21, 23 days, but, it was pretty fine. But this was the Delta, and it was different. And then when I entered, because I had a previous fungus issue with valley fever, I told them that. And when you have valley fever, steroids does not play well with it. So it actually activated the valley fever, and then it will travel to like the weakest part of your body. And we found out later on that people who are, melanated people with melanin that have valley fever, it doesn't just stay like in your lungs or the body part it's in. And mine never went to my lungs. It was in my head and my neck through the lymphatic system. It will travel throughout the body. So I had my arches collapse. I had joint pain all over, all this stuff. So at this point, though, in 2021, because it started in 2013, I was kind of managing it and feeling pretty darn good, right? During the pandemic, we were doing family yoga. I was feeling great, just felt like I was, and it was so funny because months before, and I think I shared this with you, Laura, but it was actually kind of comical. And Alana will tell you, like, I was just like, we were doing yoga. I was working out. I was really strong. I felt good. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? So it was, I guess subconsciously you could say I was preparing for
I was just gonna say, yeah, you're
preparing for
preparing for your
war, going
hero's
to underwear.
initiation.
Oh my gosh. But so basically they gave me the steroids, and then it awakened the valley fever that was laying dormant. And of course, where did it go? It was like, let me join the party because this COVID is in this guy's lungs, and boom. So it exacerbated it even more. So
Yeah.
any questions or comments you want to get to? Or
Um, so we're doing this a little bit different. I'm not necessarily hitting everybody's comments, but oh gosh, I'm so sorry. Forgive me. I just had her. Kim, who had the grand stellium, she said that she has her moon, Mercury, Uranus, Venus, Pluto, and her midheaven all in Virgo. And
Wow.
so I wasn't sure if that might be something that in your studies.
You know, Virgo is a sign, and I got Virgo rising, so I know this as well. But, Virgo, I do have a lot of Virgo placements that show up over and over again with the NDEs. And
ah,
I think it's because, Virgos often are the ones that the doctors can't figure out, right? Like the health, that Pisces Virgo axis is a health axis. And
yeah,
so if you have significant Virgo placements, either a lot of them or they're like on your angles or, um, your main three or something, you're more likely to have to pay attention to your health, right?
mm,
And there's a higher likelihood that when you go in, if you have something uh, that maybe wouldn't affect other people as much, that your doctors are going to be like, well, I've never seen this before. I don't know what's going on here.
a lot of would tell you they
So,
say that with me all the time. Like even
Yeah.
my wrist bone and
If there's some sort of weird anomaly that can happen, it's happening to Eric every
yeah.
time. I've gotten to where I can't help but giggle, and the doctors are looking at me like I'm like, you just don't even understand, you know.
Yeah.
that's really
Um,
wild. Any other comments or
so
questions?
Stephen, the Jupiterian, because I was asking specifically for people to share certain placements. He said he's South Node and Pluto in Virgo in the 10th, with his midheaven in Libra. Would that have any impact on health or NDEs or anything of that nature?
It's I would how do I say this? It's really complicated. like
It's
I
not
have
just
to
about
I
your
pretty much
placements, because what Laura's explaining, you
Okay.
guys, it's she mentioned that because of a big stellium, but it's about the transits activating it, right? As you heard her say, it was like my Mars going over, the new moon going over, and the ruler of the transiting north node in the eighth. So there's going to be a connection to the eighth house. So it's not just about you guys listing placements and stuff. There's very specific markers and stuff that lead to that.
So Quintella, she said, she has a stellium in her 7th house of Sagittarius. And her mom says she almost died when she was born. She was 18 days overdue and was hungry, so she ate her own poop. Well, girl, I've heard, I mean, actually, no, I've heard of babies doing that. That can be like super serious. But yeah, so I don't know if potentially that could be an indicator because she
so
almost died.
I mean, that would be worth looking at the chart. Like, feel free to contact me, and I, it can be part of the research. I'll have a look, because if you had something like that, then it's more likely. So some of the other things, if you have something at 29 degrees,
Yes.
anything at 29 degrees, especially though if you have a Pluto at 29 degrees, you're much more likely to have an NDE or something equivalent to that.
So you've seen that quite a bit, the Pluto 29.
I have a list of the people that I've interviewed for my book that are verified NDEers who have something in the 29th degree. And the list is like beyond one page. Like it's single spaced, there's it just shows up. It's called
Pluto
the crisis
the most
degree.
dominant one though? Was Pluto the most dominant of the 29 degrees, or were you also seeing like
No,
Neptune?
I've seen 29 degree Neptune, and when you were in your coma, your progressed Neptune was at 29 degrees Scorpio.
Yeah.
So, that's, you want to talk about an underworld initiation in a coma, right? Neptune, the planet of comas and sleep, in Scorpio, the underworld, in the crisis degree, that 29th degree. So I see that the 29th degree shows up a lot if you have a very strong Pluto in your chart. So, like my grand trine, or a 29 degree Pluto right on the ascendant, Pluto right on the midheaven, and 8th house Pluto. Those things I would say, cautiously say, because I'm not looking at the individual charts, but I would cautiously say that would predispose you more. But the main thing that seems to predispose people is that NDE natal marker of something in the 8th house quincunx something else, or the ruler of the 8th house quincunx something else. And almost always, it's not 100%, but I would say it's like, I don't know, at least like 80%. That NDE natal marker is directly involved in the near-death experience transits. So something is pinging it at the time of the experience.
Now, so what's really fascinating though, because you had told me, now I'm not sure if, I know some of them were for, and we'll get to that, the October 16th awakening, but there were some more asteroids and centaurs and different things that were potentially involved in September 6th?
So one of the wildest things, and this is another thing that's coming out of my research, is that, so you have the main things that, every astrologer looks at. And then some people add in Chiron. I definitely would consider, after this research, true Black Moon Lilith is really super important. That is not minor at all. No. True Black Moon Lilith shows up all the time in near-death experiences.
Okay.
And so do the lunar nodes. But
and I was going through a Chiron return.
Right. So you were having, and you have a T-square with Chiron in your natal chart. So Chiron opposite Uranus, which most people have kind of loosely, within a certain generation. Most of us have it kind of loosely, but in yours, it's a little tighter.
Yeah.
And then it's both of those square your moon. And so,
which is your health and your body. Yeah.
Right. And so that makes, for like your Chiron return is more active than most people's Chiron returns. So so that is a factor. But the wildest thing for you is that, so there's this, it's a trans-Neptunian object. It's a binary Plutino, and it's called Mors Somnus. That's MORS hyphen SOMNUS. Mors
Mors
Somnus.
Somnus? I've
Yeah.
never heard of this in astrology.
Yeah, I had never heard of this either, but I'm a nerd. And
Oh my
so I
God.
was just like looking up
And
on
is
this.
this a star or an asteroid? What is it?
No, it's called a Plutino, and there's two of them, and they like orbit around each other, and they're way out in the Kuiper belt, like way out there by by Neptune. And but here's the weird thing.
Okay.
So in mythology, they're brothers, and they're the sons of Nox. I think that's her name, Nox the night, like the goddess of the night. And Mors is death, and Somnus is sleep. And so there's like this connection between sleep and death. And Mors Somnus for the entire time, because it's way out there, it doesn't move very fast.
And when you say way out there, where is it at?
Well, it was at 24 Taurus at the time of like, it just stayed at 24 Taurus at the time of the entire coma. And your Saturn is at 22 Taurus. And on the day that you woke up, that got really activated by a finger of God, by a yod, and transiting Mars and all this stuff. It like woke you from the coma. But Saturn is that point of limitation and delays, and you can't break free, right? And so you have this sleep of death hanging out on your limiting.
But it's in Taurus, right? So that's like literally like the ventilator, the tubes down my throat.
Yeah.
Oh.
And so, yeah, it's just wild to me that it was there. And then when I discovered that Mors Somnus was crossing my Mercury, so my natal Mercury, so the messenger, the relayer of information, my Mercury's in Gemini. So it's like I'm like downloading information and sharing it, typing it up in your chapter.
Wait, and the Uranus is there too.
Yeah.
Yeah, transit.
Yeah,
So
Uranus was not close at that time, though, right? But now,
I mean, now for you,
yes. Oh yeah.
Uranus,
yes.
right, is retrograde in Gemini.
Yep. Yeah. Uranus is like right on my natal sun, and also has been crisscrossing my midheaven. So yeah, it's fun.
But this, you guys, to me, tells me that you are divinely guided in this research and writing this book. Like, it's meant for you. That's what I told you. I said, this is nothing small. This is like your life's work. Like, this is going to be so big and so powerful because you're bringing up research that is really proving to people. And I guess this gets into the deeper thing of like, we choose our parents and the questions of destiny and soul and will and all that. But it's like, a lot of this seems like it was preordained, that like, before I came in, this was part of my soul contract that I chose this, right?
It certainly starts looking like it. I mean, I have 4 chapters on the lunar nodes. I was not expecting to write, and they're long chapters. I was not expecting to write that much, but I'm like, they show up in every single NDE. That's I mean, maybe there's an exception, right? But for the most part, the lunar nodes, either the natal lunar nodes and or the transiting lunar nodes, they show up, and it's a precise hit. Of one person I interviewed, she's had 3 NDEs. She has dates for 2 of them. And for those 2, the lunar nodes were in exactly the same location. Wow. I mean, that's wild, right? And then another person I interviewed, she had 3 NDEs. They were in fairly close succession. So the lunar nodes hadn't really moved that far. But then 46 years later, she had another event that like tracked with her 3rd NDE, and the lunar nodes were almost exactly opposite. And so it was like a lunar opposition to where they were,
like the reversal. Her first
3.
Wow.
Yeah. And so you look at enough of those and you're like, whoa, Like people talk about the North Node destiny point, and but it's like when that shows up over and over again, you're kind of like, oh, okay, yeah, I guess this is part of a life plan.
So let me ask you then, because this may be something, to really help the audience and to share, right? We know the North Node, also known as Rahu, the dragon's head, the South Node, Ketu, the dragon's tail. These are the nodes of fate. They're very karmic, right? In the Vedic, they look at both of them as malefics. And so, but what are they as energetic points that you think are the impetus or the spark to these connections of the NDEs?
So, I think some of it, and I do look at the difference between the Vedic and the tropical. There's a few things. First of all, the fact that they're constantly involved in NDEs. I can see why people were saying, oh, they're malefic, right? Like, because in the ancient times, we didn't have all the medical intervention. And so a lot of times you'd have these transits, like Saturn crossing your North Node. A lot of times, like in the Middle Ages, that's a death transit. It's like, oh, you're dead.
Yeah.
And but now we have interventions, and also we have like depth psychology. And so you can experience endings on a different level. You can experience transformation on where it's like you have a death and rebirth, but you just have it psychologically. And so I think there is more wiggle room. But, the lunar nodes are always connected with eclipses. And that's the other really super uncanny thing is just how often. I knew that eclipses were connected with death. Like I knew that going in.
Yeah.
Oh,
we've seen in
wow.
history, right? A lot of kings and leaders and warriors and stuff like dying. Yeah.
Yeah. It's freaky though, when you look and somebody's had an NDE and then you're like, I get my little psychic downloads that are like, oh, check the eclipses for 1976. So I look them up and I'm like, oh, whoa. Okay. There they are. That's, yeah, very often. And so that whole thing that eclipses unfold over the next 6 months, like I would say it's true based on my research. It does show up, not all the time, but very often.
And also transfers of power, because we just saw it with Queen Elizabeth and then King Charles, right? On the eclipses, when she passed, and then the next, I guess, eclipse, I don't know if it was solar then lunar or lunar then solar, I can't remember, but then he was brought in, right? So
yeah, they're always big deal, but yeah, the lunar nodes, since they are linked with eclipses, I think that's part of it. But just, the precise transits where it's like within 1 degree or like right there. And it's really interesting with repeat NDEers just to see like over and over again, certain players just keep showing up at the same spot. So the lunar nodes, it takes like 18.6 years or whatever for it to cycle the zodiac. And so to have it so precise is wild.
It's so wild. And I'll raise my hand to say, I think the 40 days, that should be enough that there should be no repeat for me. I didn't sign up for a repeat. So
yeah, you did the thorough.
The thorough one and done. Thank you. And I got the t-shirt and the hat. So one question that I do have, because when you think about the North Node transiting the 8th, and obviously for Scorpio rising, that gets to Gemini and you're dealing with the lungs. Have there been other signs? Because you did kind of mention some interesting anomalies you're seeing with Virgos. Have there ever been, or in your research, have there been patterns of other astrological signs or placements that seem to kind of repeat, that stand out to you?
You have several people that have Capricorn Sun, Quincunx, Gemini Moon. Like that's another one of these things. That does not mean that you're going to have an NDE. Right. It may just be my pool of people, but that shows up a lot. The Gemini Scorpio Quincunx also shows up quite a lot. Sun Quincunx Moon, or Moon Quincunx Sun, that shows up all the time in transits, like sky transits. On the day somebody has an NDE, it's like, oh, look at it. There it is again. The moon quincunx the sun that day. oftentimes it will also do something within the chart that's really significant. But that moon quincunx sun, whether it's in a natal chart or in transits, it's not up there as an NDE natal marker, but it's definitely a repeat pattern that I see a lot.
Okay. Now, I do want to mention something because I think it's fascinating. We discussed this, and from what I've read, and Alana and I have discussed this, it seems like they've said, because most of these NDEs, you're hearing people, oh, I saw my ancestors, I saw Jesus and love and light. And for me, it was so dark. So the dark, more negative, distressing NDEs, it's only like about 8 or 10% the people that have those. So it is more rare. It's way less common.
Well, I don't know if that's true though, because there's
really?
such a stigma, right?
Okay.
So it may
Oh,
be
so
a
you think
situation where
could
people
be
aren't
holding
reporting,
back? What you're saying, you think people are holding back, not wanting to share?
I mean, I have quite a few clients that never have told anybody that they had an NDE before, and they know that I'm doing this research, and they've said, "Oh, I had an NDE, but I don't tell people about it because it wasn't a love and light. Like I went to hell, or I saw this negative thing." And as with you, you can have very positive effects from that kind of experience. And I think it was PMH Atwater was doing some research on it and saying that there's really not the difference. I mean, some of the people that had the most beautiful, amazing NDEs, they think it was like the worst thing that ever happened because they come back to this reality and it's like, oh, it'll never be good enough. It'll
Well,
never.
yeah, I've heard that. Yeah, that's so true. Wow. And that's a different perspective of looking at it that way.
Yeah. Whereas some of the people that have the negative, they're like, oh, thank goodness I'm still alive. I'm so grateful to be here. Oh, wow. I have a second chance.
It's all perspective, right?
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's so powerful. But there was an interesting transit because you had pointed this out to me. Because during my NDE, and I will say my beautiful wife is right here, 17 years of marriage, but during my NDE, she was trying to kill me. She was cheating on me. She had a younger man, you guys. Oh my God. Can you imagine?
And this was not true.
Yeah, none of this is true. But in my coma, she had like 3 different boyfriends, and it was very dark. But share with the audience what was happening, the transit, as I fell into coma on the 6th.
So transiting Venus in Libra was squaring Pluto in Capricorn. So that was in the sky. And I think that's why you didn't catch it, right? Because it wasn't personal to your chart, but
Well,
it was
in the
happening
sky,
in
but
the
not just in the
sky.
sky. What's important though, Libra, it's my 12th house of dreams and the hospital, and Venus is the wife. And then Pluto was like close to my moon in Capricorn 3rd house. I was in a hospital in the local community, and the moon and Pluto's transforming my body and health. And 3rd house is lungs. So like I mean, you can't get more literal than that. Did you see anything else like that with other people?
I have, yeah, I mean, I've noticed the sky transits impacting people, but I will say it seems to be more with people who are in coma. So, like, you were in a coma, and I think that like you didn't have your ego filter up, right? Like you weren't conscious, and so all of it was just coming right through, and because there were a number of situations where things played out in the sky and they on the surface had very little to do with your natal chart, but like the transit energy was very present in your coma. And so that's my theory is that when, especially it happened with you, but I think it happens with a lot of people in a coma, what's going on outside in the heavens, there's no filter at all.
So it affects you more in a greater way because you're literally out, so you're just more susceptible to the energies.
Right.
Wow. Okay, let's go back to the chat for a second, and then we'll try to maybe bring up this chart.
One thing, when he woke up, he actually thought that his mom had moved to New York to live with his sister because his sister had offered to take her in and care for her. So when all this was happening, and so he thought that, and he thought I was trying to kill him, I was like, oh, he's just lost his mind completely. He's in bizarro backward world, because for both of those things to be happening, we're so outside of anything. But I wanted to talk specifically about there's two different people who had comments that I found really interesting. Phoenix, she was talking about that. And if you are listening, Phoenix, please comment because I asked you a question in there. If you're okay, so if you're listening, Phoenix, please, I asked you a question on this, but you had brought up that you had an event where you left your body and you had been depressed, unemployed, you've been going through all this stuff, and you left your body, and you saw your soul leaving your body twice, and you got scared, and your soul came back to your body. And then you shared your placements, and you said this was in the 90s. You have Virgo and Pluto and North Node in the 6th house, and you've thought about suicide. So I wasn't quite sure if you meant you had attempted it at that point in time or not, but that you know that it's not the answer to have Virgo access, Virgo 6th house, North Node, and Pisces 12th South Node with the Sun, M-E. Sun, M-E?
With me. The sun.
Sun with me.
Yeah.
So,
because her Virgo sun's in the 6th.
If you want, let me reread that one more time. So,
no, I think.
Okay, did you get that? What do you think on that? Was that?
I don't understand the question. Did you get it, Eric?
I don't know if there's a specific question.
It's not more of a statement, and I think she's trying to put those two things together in terms of
being able to see her
experience
soul,
of leaving the body and
those
placements. And I'm not sure she was saying she was having an NDE, because then she mentioned suicide, which would kind of indicate possibly that it was an NDE.
But that's pretty interesting. And obviously Virgo, I mean, your Virgo Pisces, and you're talking about the 6th, 12th house access. So, yeah.
And then we have our friend Abdul Ruiz, and he actually had an NDE in 2022.
Oh, wow.
And you know, Abdul, they say it takes 7 years for you to fully integrate this experience and understand it. So you are even newer than my husband. So you're a baby NDEer. And
glad you're still here, Abdul.
He has a stellium in his 8th house.
Yep.
Sagittarius. And he said that Black Moon Lilith is there, or I'm not sure where he said it was, but he asked what about Black Moon Lilith? And so I heard you say, he mentioned that before you mentioned about Black Moon Lilith being a part of this. So,
are you seeing things with Lilith natally in the 8th or transiting the 8th?
Sometimes in the 8th, but Black Moon Lilith shows up seriously in almost every single NDE as some kind of a trigger. It's none of the things that I'm saying are 100%, but Black Moon Lilith, I've got 2 chapters on her in my book, and she's also just like all over the book because it keeps showing up over and over again. So, but if you think of Black Moon Lilith, I mean, and it's the true Black Moon Lilith, just to be clear, the mean Black Moon Lilith it doesn't play.
So that's in miscellaneous and astro.com. You guys would put in the H13. That's the true Black Moon Lilith. Very important.
Which is also known as the oscillating lunar apogee. And so my theory is that Black Moon Lilith is such an erratic point.
Yes.
Right. And that goes with the archetype. She's a wild woman. But it's a trauma marker in the chart. And there is, I mean, anytime you have an NDE, like there's some kind of trauma involved, right? Like you died. so like there's some kind of trauma there. But she's also archetypally associated with, death of children, stillbirths, miscarriages, all of that kind of stuff. And then the need to escape. And in the lore, she's Adam's first wife and left the Garden of Eden. And so there is this kind of connection with leaving paradise. So it's like you're like in paradise and then you're out of paradise. So but yeah, Black Moon Lilith shows up a lot as as a big factor. And having a stellium in the 8th house, I would say, definitely tracks with a lot of NDEers. They have significant placements in the 8th house.
Let's see if you can see it. Okay, so we're gonna try to bring up the chart.
You either need to have it in a tab.
Oh,
or
it won't work.
Or the entire screen. Is it up on the screen?
It's up on the screen, the entire screen. Yeah, it's not in Chrome. It should be separate.
But
It says that Eric Taylor. It's a document.
if I hit this, we'll try. I don't know, because it's not showing anything. It's just share your screen.
Okay, what is that saying? Share what? Desktop?
Yeah, you'll need to restart Chrome to share your screen. No, you don't want to do that.
Restart Chrome.
You know what? I'm sorry.
Okay,
We can't do that.
I couldn't. I have it on my desktop, but I can't bring it up. So why don't you just explain the chart of October 16th, because you found really some. I mean, we're getting into centaurs and new names that I've never heard of, just like the monosamos.
More somnus.
Yes, the monosamos. So now you've also discovered Okira or Okira?
Okiro.
Okira.
So it's OKYRHO, I think is how you spell it.
Yeah.
RHOE.
Okay. Well, you could just set it up. Like what was happening October 16th that now you guys, we would be here for 30 hours but just so you guys know, I awakened on day 37, October 13th at night, and no one was there at the hospital during this time. And it was at St. Joseph's in Phoenix, which ironically was voted the worst hospital in Arizona. My luck, right? But hey, I made it out of there. But on the 13th, when I awakened, I was so weak, and I'm just trying to, my locks were there, but they were shorter, but I was trying to just wipe the sweat off my brow. But you can imagine I was out for 37 days. I'm so weak. So they thought I was trying to pull out my tubes, right? The breathing tubes. I wasn't, but they didn't turn on the light. And so they just were kind of like there, but not helping me and almost ignoring me a little. And I'll be honest, it was a little bit scary because, I'm just waking up and I'm like wondering where my family is, but it was late at night. And then they put restraints on me. They said, Mr. Taylor, if you keep trying to move or grab your thing, but I had no way of communicating. And so then they came back in and they put restraints on me. So being so angry, upset, and frustrated, I went back to coma land. And then I awakened again 2 nights later, day 39, October 15th. The exact same thing happened to me with the same person. And they put restraints on me again. And this time even tighter. So you could imagine I was so weak. But to put restraints on somebody when they're in that state, it's I get it. They're thinking I could potentially almost kill myself or whatever. But you got to understand my perspective. It was literally cruel. You know what I mean? Like, it was terrible. So that was on the 15th. I awakened October 16th in the morning, and this nurse comes in, blonde hair. That's what I remember, blonde hair nurse. And it was like an angel of light of God. She was like, oh my God, it's so good to see you. Oh, who put those restraints on you? Let me take those off. And I'm like, like the hostage victim, like, yeah. And so she took those off of me, and it was during the day, and I awakened for good. So that was day 40. And then I contacted my wife. I don't know if she, can add to that if she remembers or whatever, but they contacted her, and then she came to the hospital, and then boom, then everything kind of began from there. So what was happening that you feel, you have hypothesized that created me waking up for good on October 16th?
So yeah, several things converged. So when you dropped into the coma, the nodal axis was squaring your Mars, right? It moved during that 40-day period, so that was exactly like in the same degree, just minutes apart, in a grand cross. So a mutable grand cross with your nodal axis. So you have a Pisces north node, a Virgo south node, and this was Gemini north node, Sagittarius south node. So it was like a giant X, right?
Wow.
Yeah. But what
mutable
happened?
Cross.
Yeah. It was a mutable grand cross. But what happened was the moon overnight from the 15th into the 16th, the transiting moon crossed your north node, like just hours before you woke up. So there was like the nodal axis always moves backwards. So it moved backwards. It like clicked into this exact mutable grand cross with your north node. At the same time, the moon went pop. So it was like destiny. And you told me afterwards that your mom had a Pisces moon and Pisces ascendant. So there's that mother energy there with the moon.
And a lot of different people and psychics have said not only was Archangel Raphael really helping me, but so was my mother on the other side. And so that's really important, because when you talk about that X, you guys, in play is my 11th house of Virgo, the 2nd house of Sag, the 8th house of Gemini, and the 5th house of Pisces. And then my mother's Pisces, your heart, right? The 5th house of the Pisces moon coming over the natal north node. That's wow. That's
so yeah, that was one of the things. And then there was a yod, so a transiting finger of God, right? One of those isosceles triangles. And this was the part that was just wild.
Okay.
So your natal Saturn, 22 Taurus.
Yes.
Transiting Neptune the whole time was
7th house, so they know 7th house.
So transiting Neptune at the time was at 20 Pisces. So sextile that, right?
Okay.
More somnus is sitting on your Saturn. So the sleep of death is like delaying itself on your point of limitation, right? That's been happening the whole time, that transit, right? But what happened on the day that you woke up, so the transiting sun was at 23 Libra. So quincunx those points.
Yes.
Both of them. But then what happened was the sun had been moving up there on the 13th through the 15th. The sun was basically like right around 20 degrees of Libra. So you're stirring, you're kind of waking up, right?
Yeah.
On the 16th, Mars got to 20 Libra. And so the sun was at 23 Libra. Mars, acting early, was like pop.
Join the party.
And so this
and that's
happened.
In my 12th house. So that makes it more relevant, you guys, because I'm literally in the hospital.
Yeah. In a coma.
In coma, Sun and Mars.
Yeah. So Mars was the activator, but the sun conjunct Mars is like vitality. So here you are like wasting away, and all of a sudden along comes Mars with a whole bunch of energy. But the other thing, and this is so amazing, and I see this, it actually is in another story that I share in the book about someone where Black Moon Lilith was like a very, very major trigger. And she was in restraints also. So Black Moon Lilith, she needs to break free. She does not want to be restrained. That's like the worst thing you can do for the wild woman, right? So transiting Black Moon Lilith, which is a very erratic point, was crossing over your Saturn. It was exactly on your Saturn that day. So not only did you have, the base of the yod had been in effect, that sextile had been in effect for a while with more somnus, sleep of death on your Saturn, Neptune in the coma in Pisces, that was there the whole time. But then along comes the sun, and you start stirring with this finger of God pointing to the sun. You're stirring, but you don't quite have enough energy to come out. And then Mars comes along up there, and Black Moon Lilith comes along by Saturn and says, "Oh, hell no. You're not going to restrain me. Oh, hell no. I'm getting out of here." And so between the two of them, they just like throw off the restraints, throw off the coma, and all of a sudden Eric Taylor's awake.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And that's so wild. It gives me chills as you explain it, because these are like some wild anomalies, like these transit, but it's weird, right? Because we could look at Mars and Lilith as being more negative and a challenge. You could almost think that same energy could put me in coma, which we already discovered that it did, the Mars, right? But
Mars conjuncted your Lilith when you entered the hospital. So there you had it. Yeah. But then they're in this like different relationship. And I mean, you were out cold, right? You're but with that nodal axis, the mutable grand cross, it's like, oh no, it was time. It was just like the cosmic clock said, ding, 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 wake up, Eric. And then the finger of God went, action. And like there you went.
So if you, with your research and astrological knowledge, if you had to weigh the scales, was it the grand mutable cross? or was it that finger of God who had the more power in awakening me?
That's really hard to say, because what I notice, and so this is the hardest part of writing this book, is
Right,
that
right,
almost every single NDE, it's not just one transit.
right.
It's a perfect storm of like the most unlikely things all converging all at once. And a lot of them are these finger of God, or like, a grand trine. There was also a grand trine in Earth that helped. I think that helps support. Um, but it's never just one thing. And so what I've had to do in making this understandable for other people, I
Right.
have a couple chapters where I take a 3-time NDE or a PMH Atwater and really do a deep dive into her near deaths and her natal chart. But then for the rest of the people, it's themed chapters. So you're in the moon chapter because your mom was a big part of this and the moon was a big part of it for you. You're also in the Mars chapter because Mars was a big thing. Now Mars shows up in a lot of NDEs, but what I find is when one thing is really dominant, or a couple things are really dominant, they really leave the signature of that energy. So like in a
Mm.
lot of NDEs, Mars is an activator of some sort. It either, pops off the near death marker, or it wakes them up from the coma or something, but it may not be like the main player. In your case, I would say Mars was a main player. And
Yeah.
so your NDE had this flavor where it was much more, Mars like there was a lot of confrontation. There was a lot of like in your face stuff that you had to deal with.
Yeah. And can I ask you, do you feel that it's more important because it's my chart ruler?
Yes. Yeah. Well, and also because Mars and Pluto are your chart ruler, and they got together there. So yes, that was a big deal.
Okay.
The other thing is that when you entered the coma, transiting Mars and transiting Jupiter were quincunx each other, which is generally a hard aspect. Like the quincunx signs, they don't have anything in common, but it's like this compelling thing that you have to
So explain
integrate.
to the audience just so they know. So the Mars was in Virgo, and where was the Jupiter?
Jupiter was in Aquarius,
Ah,
and they were exactly quincunx. On when you entered the coma, Mars was at 24 Virgo, and transiting Jupiter was at 24 Aquarius. So it was exact. When
wow.
you woke up 40 days later, transiting Mars was now at 20 Libra. And so it was trine Jupiter in Aquarius. Jupiter moved slower than Mars. So
Yeah.
Jupiter was at 20, it was retrograde. So Jupiter was at
Also, I
22
had the Mars
Aquarius.
Jupiter trine when I awakened.
You had a Mars Jupiter trine when you awakened.
Oh my God. So Mars was hitting mold. It was evolved in the finger of God and a trine to Jupiter.
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's wow, that's really heavy. So before we wrap up, let's see if there's any more questions, because I mean this is amazing. And so just also share with the audience as Alana goes to the chat, what are you thinking? Is this going to be a 400-page book, or?
I'm trying not to make it a 400-page book. The tricky thing is that while I am writing the book, and I mean, I am sitting at the computer typing and I'm doing the research and everything, I have my idea of like, what's the outline of this book? And then along comes a dream and like a synchronicity storm. And it's like, oh, I guess I'm including that. So I don't know. And there's this plot that's like writing itself into the book. It's like I'm telling everybody's stories, and there's that level. And then there's the astrology level, but then there's like this other underlying plot, and I don't actually know where that's going. But it's
Wow.
very obvious when it shows up. It keeps showing up with 29 Virgo. Like, so we had the eclipse. I made this other discovery about an eclipse like 801 years ago that was at 29 Virgo. A number of people have shown up, and I wasn't going to include their story. And then I look at their chart and they've got something at 29 Virgo, and I'm like, oh, there's that marker. Okay. And so that's not a near death marker, I don't think, but,
Right.
it is a marker from like the universe saying this is going to go in your book. So I don't know where that's going.
But that's beautiful that you are open enough, mentally and I think spiritually, to allow spirit to guide you with this book, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. The whole thing is very spirit guided. And the weirdest thing, and it shouldn't be weird, I mean it kind of makes sense, but it blows my mind all over again every single time it happens is, you know, some of these people I interviewed years ago, 2 years or more ago, but I'm just getting around to telling their story. And I'm telling
Mm.
their story. I put them in a particular chapter, you know, okay, we're talking about the moon or we're talking about Mars or Chiron or whatever. And while I'm writing their chapter, like something will be hitting the exact location of the planet that I'm
Oh
talking
my
about
God.
at the time of their NDE. And so it's just like everything is so orchestrated. It's wild.
That is really wild. Okay, let's see. Any last or major questions or comments?
Um, let's see. Now, Phoenix really wants to know your big three, Laura.
We already told her,
Oh, did
Phoenix.
she?
Yeah.
Okay, because
So
she's
remember, she's the Virgo rising, Aquarius moon, and Gemini sun, and she got a Gemini stellium.
Mhm.
Okay.
okay. And then, so we've also figured out that she was probably astro traveling when she had that experience.
Okay.
Mhm.
And I have to comment in relation to you in the book. I mean, our books are completely different. Mine is a very visual workbook with graphics and all these different things.
Yeah, she's helping
But
with the
it
astrology
feels
book.
like what
Yeah.
you said. I get these little bursts. I'm like, oh, we got to put this. We got to put this. And it's like, it's just turning into this longer and longer book. And it's just a workbook, but it's 150 pages. And it's like, so I kind of understand what you're saying, although you were like a super brainiac smart. And I wasn't even planning on being here on camera. My hair is a mess. I'm just sitting here like,
Oh, you're beautiful.
drawn me out, Laura. You got me over here in front of the people looking just like a mess. Anyways, it's been just so wonderful hearing about your book, and I cannot wait to see it. Once it's complete, it's
That's
really
going to be
exciting. And I
amazing.
know Eric he's so honored to be a part of this.
Yeah.
Oh.
Appreciative.
So-
Yeah. Any other questions or comments? Because I
I
want to
don't
get to one other
see
thing.
really anything from anyone. I've been kind of just telling people, no, we're keeping this really about NDEs.
Yeah. Well, if there's anybody's curious about anything or any placements or things like that, definitely there's the time to ask. Write it in now. But so one thing we didn't really touch on though is when you shared that with me with Chiron's daughter.
Mhm.
What was that in reference to in terms of me and my NDE story? Because
So this is your NDE natal marker, right? The ruler of your 8th house is Mercury. And when I looked at your Mercury, which is 21 Virgo, I couldn't find anything in the chart that it was quincunx to. And so I am super nerdy, right? So I went to another much bigger ephemeris. It's like, so I'm not sure how to pronounce it. It's Serennu, SERENNU.com. And you can pull up an ephemeris and it'll list like, I don't know, 40 different things. And so I knew I was looking for something around 21 degrees Aquarius or 21 Aries, because that's what would quincunx that Mercury.
Yeah.
And what I found was this Okira, which is OKYHROE, or I don't know. It's spelled many different ways because it's a Greek word.
Okay.
But it's totally obscure. I had never heard of this before.
I've never heard of it. Yeah.
But super nerdy, I looked up the mythology and I was like, oh, this is totally relevant because you have that T-square with Chiron and your moon and Uranus in your natal chart. You were going through your Chiron return.
Yeah.
And your NDE natal marker is Mercury, quincunx, Okiro, and it also brings in your Sun and your Lilith because they're right there too. So it's this quincunx to Okiro, who is Chiron's daughter, and she was a prophetess. And so Chiron is the wounded healer. He trained the god Asclepius, so Apollo's son Asclepius, Chiron was like his foster dad / mentor and
Mm.
taught him healing, taught him medicine. But when he was just a little baby, so Asclepius has just been dropped off to Chiron. And this is, I think, before the whole Chiron story really got started. But Asclepius is there. Okiro walks into the cave and starts prophesying about Asclepius and says, oh, he's going to be the healer of the world. He's going to be able to even revive people from the dead. And like literally, that's what she says, that he will be able to revive people from the dead. And Okiro, she was only allowed to give certain amount, like she had parameters on what she was allowed to reveal. So she was totally psychic. Like she knew all of like the fates of everybody and like when they were going to die and how they were going to die. She was not allowed to say that. And she got into all this trouble because she told her dad what was going to happen to him and how he was going to die and all that, even though he's an immortal. She's like predicting stuff. So they turned her, the gods got mad. They're like, you're revealing all our secrets. We can't have you do that. And so they turned her into a horse and like took away her voice. And so here, this is like Mercury, right? The communicator and also a psychopomp, right? Mercury can go into the realm of the dead and out again. But Mercury quincunx Okiro, who's not allowed to talk. She's not allowed to say when is somebody going to come out of a coma. But she gives prophecies about Asclepius and healing from the dead and coming back from the dead. So when I saw that marker, even though it's completely obscure, I was like, oh,
and that's Aries, 21 degrees in my 6th house.
No, it's a 20 degrees Aquarius.
Okay, 20 degrees Aquarius. Okay. Wow. And that's not too far from the Fulmulus.
The Fulus is your Fulus is 28 Aquarius. Okay. So it's not. I wouldn't call that a conjunction because again, with pretty obscure.
But so it's more about it. The quincunx to the Mercury.
Right, but Mars activated that. Right, Mars transiting Mars activated your natal Mercury right when you went into the hospital. So it was like you went into the hospital. And Mars went ping on your natal NDE marker. And then when you dropped into the coma, Mars was approaching your natal Pluto and went ping. And your natal Pluto's extra sensitive because you've got that quincunx to Pholus. And so, I mean, Mars conjuncting your Pluto is not really a small thing, but the big effect was bigger because of that Pholus quincunx. So Mars did both of those things within a week when you were in the hospital.
So that's incredible. And I just got a download. Do you think that, because I think about as a Scorpio rising, my Aquarius really, like my home, my 4th house, do you think that could have led to me astro traveling to my home and seeing my my family and my twin son, and communicating with him? Like that's.
I do, but also the way that I'm framing your story, and I mean, I have to frame it some way, right? Otherwise, it's a whole book. But I am framing it kind of like the hero's journey. And if you think about it, when the hero, when you're on an initiation journey, I mean, the first thing that happens is you're ripped out of the familiar. But a lot of times, if it's a really hard journey, there's some little moments that are funny. Or there's some little moments like you meet people that are either familiar, from your past that show up and you're like, oh, it's so good to see you. And you don't get to hang out with them the whole time. Yeah. But like they come and they're encouraging you. Right. And so I feel like there was this Jupiter effect of encouragement and
with the birthday party.
At the birthday party, you dance into the hip hop music. Yeah. And then, you astral travel to the house. You saw all this seemingly awful stuff with Alana and her demon lover and all of that. But then you got this wonderful hug from your son, Jackson.
Yeah.
And then he validated that he did see you in the house, like in spirit form. And which is kind of like a mind warp for you because like that was true, but the other stuff wasn't true.
Right.
But I feel like if you put it into a narrative, it's like, oh, well, some of this was kind of like the happy part of the journey because you know, if a journey gets so intense and you don't get any break and you don't have any encouragement and you
Right.
feel completely abandoned, then like you're only going to be able to fight that so long. You know, you need these moments of
Right.
grace.
Like it
Yeah.
kept me hopeful enough to fight. And yeah, that's really on point and so powerful. Like, yeah,
Yeah, I think you're spot on there.
that's wow. This has been so incredible. And, I thank you not just for having me a part of it. I thank you as the astrology nerd myself for taking this task on, but being capable enough to do it. And, I would expect nothing less from a Gemini stellium and a Virgo rising. It's, you know what I mean? Like, you guys may not know, but in ancient times, Mercury being the messenger was very connected to astrologers. So you can also have a lot of Gemini, Virgo astrologers because that's what Mercury really was in some ways. Because Mercury is the only one that can go and dance with what they say the gods, the sun and moon, but then go to the underworld, Hades, and kind of be there with Pluto. And it's either masculine or feminine based on the sign that it's in. So Mercury Hermes is very powerful in that sense. And you have really shown to be just a powerful messenger. And so I thank you. And I'm so excited for this book. And you'll have to come back when the book is finally out and done. Like that's, yeah, we've got to. Now, are you into, or are you at the point where you would take or let me know when you're thinking of doing pre-orders? Because I'm sure my audience would love to like be a part of getting this book. And is that something you're going to do, like pre-orders or anything like
I
that?
probably will. Because of that underlying plot that is writing itself into this book, I don't know exactly when it's going to be finished. I'm
I
hoping
get it.
to have it done in the first half of next year. I'm hoping closer to like January, February than like May, June, but I don't know.
Right.
So I will have pre-orders. I am going to self-publish because next year is a good year for this to go out. You know, Pluto in Aquarius,
Yes.
the god of death and rebirth, right? The planet of death and rebirth in Aquarius, the sign of the astrologer. Like this is a good time for that. Pluto's going to be there for a while, but I just feel like with Saturn going to
And
be in
Neptune and
early
Aries.
Aries again and Neptune, like I feel like over the next 2.5 years, we are going to, as a collective, have a
Yeah.
different understanding of time.
Yeah.
Like, and there's a lot of people that are researching things like precognition, time loops. Eric Wargo, I don't know if you know his work, but
No.
just narratives blending into real life. All of this stuff is up, and I feel like it's because astrologically it's a good time for it.
Yeah.
And with Uranus entering
Gemini.
Gemini
Yeah.
again next year in April,
Yeah.
it's a good time for me to publish a book, right? Because Uranus is crossing my midheaven and my Sun and my Mercury next year. But also new information, like weird information
Yes.
is coming out. And so it just feels like that's the time frame that it will come out, but I don't have it narrowed down to an exact date yet.
All right.
So.
Well, whenever we will squeeze you and pencil you in, and your slot will be open because this is brilliant. And I really, I'm just in great gratitude, and I'm excited to read it and to learn more because just even with my NDE and these anomalies and placements, you've taught me so much. And I'm just like, my brain is just like, oh my God, you're about to send me down these rabbit holes that I don't even have time for with all these kids. So I thank you. And I'm excited. And yeah, kudos to you, my friend. This has been so awesome and a great way to share with the audience and to you and my amazing wife who, I just want to share, like, you guys, she is the testament of true dedicated love. What I saw on the other side as we spoke about Venus square Pluto was very traumatic for me, because we do have this great love story and we're best friends and soulmates. But, even when I awakened, she can tell you I was interrogating her because I had to know what I saw. Was this real or not? So immediately talking through the trach, I'm like, who is at the house? You know, and she's all excited to see me. And how was I? I was kind of like not so nice and not so friendly. So I give her a lot of credit. You know, she was very patient, but the doctors did tell you that I would be kind of
like, well, they told me that he could be brain damaged. Is this what it was?
She was like, I've been waiting and I've been at the hospital twice a day, and you're gonna question me? Like, you must be brain damaged, mister, you know. But it's a miracle because she also fought to get me on the proper tube feed, which the hospital did not want to put me on.
Yeah.
And we knew about it because we were taking care of my mother, who was getting Kate Farms, and the regular tube feed would have had me as a diabetic for life. So, you know, there's just so much. And yeah, and her, you know, her and the boys were playing hip hop music, and I was dancing, and that was really great. And yeah, and the birthday wishes, and so, and the fact that I saw that on the other side, that's kind of incredible. I guess that would be my last question. Have you experienced with other people, and obviously you said I was the longest coma, was there anybody like that was like close, or like 10, 20 days, or like
As far that I have personally interviewed for it, no. One person was in a 3-day coma. Another person was down for a week.
okay,
And then you. I mean, I have all different types of
all different
people
types, yeah,
that
no, definitely.
and some are historical figures that we oddly have natal information for. Some of them are public figures that have written books. I haven't personally interviewed them, but their charts are available and their stories and interviews are available. But I mean, 40 days is a long time to be in a coma. Like, a lot of times people are pulling the plug by then. So,
well, that's the thing, you know, besides my wife, to be honest with you, a lot of friends and family, you know, they kind of wrote me off. A lot of people did. A lot of people did, you know, so it was truly a miracle. And I really think about, you know, just God and these planetary alignments and these connections. But I also think about, like I said, so many people who are subscribers to my channel, the messages and the amount of love and prayers, and even my friends from high school and college they set up like a Facebook group, and Alana would give my good buddy, you know, she would give my good buddy Chris updates, and then he would, like, you know, update the whole Facebook group that he set up. And you know, and so there was just so much love, you know, and I was explaining to my boys, I said, you know, all the love that we got, like Alana didn't have to cook one meal.
No, you know, it was really beautiful. We saw some really, for all the darker things that we experienced, we saw some beautiful examples of just love out of people. And it was amazing.
And I even had some, you know, subscribers like donate money to my Cash App. It was so humbling, you know what I mean? And so you know, it just like really so. But I was also, the moment for me, the teaching moment to my sons, to my 4 sons, was, you know, that is a testament to the love that I've been giving to others my whole life.
I was just going to say,
yeah. So I got that love because I've also been giving that love. And so that's why you guys are here at Knowledge is Love Astrology Podcast. So with that, I just want to thank you for coming.
You guys.
And everybody, thank you for watching. And just thank you so much, Laura, for including me and interviewing me in your book, and for the magical, spiritually aligned, investigative, astrological reporting that you're doing, because I really do think this is trailblazing. So,
well, thank you so much for having me on.
Of course. Now, share with everybody, how can people book readings with you and reach you, and, you know, they can follow your podcast. All her information is down below, but I just want you to share with people where they can kind of contact you at.
So asklaurabruno.com will get you to my blog and contact form and all of that information. And then my YouTube channel is just Ask Laura Bruno. I have a Twitter account, or X account, but I mean, I do nothing on it except post my videos. So if you subscribe to YouTube, that's more direct, a more direct route.
Yeah, go follow her on YouTube, and definitely go to her website. It's great. And yeah, just brilliant. All right, my friend. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your evening. And thank you guys for watching this very powerful, exciting, emotional episode for me. But it's so great to be back. And, hey, it's kind of like my new birthday. I guess in some ways I'm kind of a Libra now.
Well, there's the love, right?
Yeah, there's the love. All right, you guys.
All
All
right.
right.
Have a good
Thank you
night.
so
Guys,
much.
thank you, Laura.
All right. Bye.